All right, I'm excited that you're here. Welcome to Future-Proofing Your Google Ads for Growth and Profits in an AI World, because that's what we're going to talk about today. I want to start off with a quote that really resonates with what I'm talking about today. So, if you ignore the fundamentals, they'll lead to complex issues down the road. Simple, right? But if people put it in practice, that is not so much happening. People are not only ignoring the fundamentals, they often don't understand the fundamentals either, which creates kind of like subpar results. And systems and algorithms are like 1,000 times better of doing complicated math for you when it comes to Google Ads. They get more bang for your buck, and if you can instruct the system well enough, well, then you're in for a treat. That is where the money lies. So it's no secret that AI and machine learning are taking over. And in 2016, Google announced it will be moving forward being an AI-first company with machine learning at its core. And it's now responsible for a new generation of Google Ads that outshines former ad for AdWords on almost every front. And while we're taking our first leaps into this new AI world, the majority of the accounts are lacking the fundamentals to make machine learning work for them. So what you get as a result, you get stagnation and you get a loss in profits. So if you want to achieve growth and more profits, you need to be able to combine the best of human and the best of machine. And today, I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. So my name is Vincent Bijma. I'm a co-founder of EcomAds. It's a data-driven agency in Amsterdam, the Netherlands. We are specialized in helping 6- and 7-figure brands accelerate their growth with what we call our trifecta traffic system. I'm working in this digital marketing field for about 10 years with Google Ads as my core, and I spent on average about 26 million under my personal belt. I've been working with brands like Yves Rocher, Bonprix, Viking, and Posh Peanut. And in this time frame, I have audited over 1,700 Google Ads accounts. And in the last few years, I've seen many advertisers struggle with the change towards automation. And advertisers and media buyers in particular tend to be control freaks, let's say it how it is. And they're very caught up in the technical details and used to manage everything themselves. So the problem is that's no longer going to cut it. That's no longer going to get you the results that you normally have. In the contrary, it actually does more damage than it does good. And we're going to dive into that today. So what you need to do is we want to achieve control through adaptation. You need to be able to adapt. And today's nuggets, we're going to watch how to train Google's algorithm to become an ally instead of an enemy, what skills are essential if you want to win in this AI-first era, 5 future steps to turn your campaigns into autopilot profit machines, and why 2018 and 2019 optimization methods are no longer getting the job done. And lastly, your number one enemy lurking in the shadows when you start working in this way. So, as we just said, if you want to achieve stellar results, you need to combine the best of human and machine. That is the new way going forward. But what does that actually mean? Well, let's have a look at what the best machine actually is, what that means, and how you can work towards that goal. Well, the best machine is actually nothing more than a system that is able to recognize patterns and trends between historical data and new data. You as the instructor, because you have to teach the machine, have to lay out the playing field. You have to set the rules of the game. The machine learning, the machine cannot do it. You have to do this. And from that point forward, when these two things are set, it will go by a hit and miss, and it will be able, in the end, through a system, to make much better and accurate predictions to increase your growth and profits over time, right? So in the end, machine learning and the machine what we're talking about here is the end product of human training. It understands and it plays within the rules of the game that you have set up front. And it can make effective predictions to generate sales within your target area. So that could be, for example, a certain return on ad spend. And it can do that by finding patterns and trends between new and old data. And therefore it's able to make 1,000 times faster calculation that you and I can do as a human being. It has millions of signals that go into the system, and therefore it's able to do all these things much better than we as humans can. Now, we know now that the machine is like essential to making this happen, but we also saw that the machine needs to be taught the things to actually function, and we need to set the rules of the game. So if the machine is the end result of human training and interaction, what do you need to provide to excel at that highest level? So we're now going to watch the best human. And if you want to future-proof your Google Ads, you need to adapt 3 new roles. Some of these might already be present when in your current role, and some of them might be completely new. We're just going to dive into that. There's 3 different roles. We have here the mechanic, the instructor, and the pilot. Now remember, the machine can only be as good as the data you instruct it with. Machine learning can only discover patterns and trends that are present in your training data. So how and what you provide to the system will determine, in the end, the playing field, right? So if we move over to the mechanic role, what you do here is that you translate problems into solutions. You craft strategies to reach your business goals. You identify your 80-20 for growth. And first and foremost, you need to be patient. Because people do not give computers or computer modelings, for that sake, the same chance as an employee, because a computer can simply not explain itself. They are relying on a system to do it better, and if it doesn't hit in that first strive, they tend to throw it out of the room and say, okay, automation is not working for me. So you need to go against your human nature and against your instant gratification to make machine learning work in the longer run. Right? So that is your first role, the mechanic. Then secondly, you're going to be the instructor, and this is one of the most essential roles that you can have. You need to train the system. As the instructor, you need basically to set up a foundation of structured information for the system to learn from, and the system is only playing within the rules you have set. So there also comes by that you need to understand your audience at a very granular level, like who are these and what information can you provide to the system that it can identify these people better and show exactly, for example, what ads fit to that audience. So providing order and structure is one of the fundamental things here in this role. And then the third role is the pilot role. This is the most common if you're already doing yourself, your ads, you're being a media buyer, or you're having your own store, then you are monitoring the daily results. On top of that comes the identification of potential problems and giving direction, because you want to feed the machine with enough data so it can take that data and move towards your goal. In the end, that is a certain amount of profit, growth, or whatever that is. You want to be able to give it direction. And the thing here is that a machine cannot intercept problems that it may have caused itself. And that's why the identification of potential problems is so important. Because as you set the rules of the game, you're feeding it the data that it needs to have to go out and get more of that data. But it cannot identify mistakes that it made itself because it simply doesn't have the statistics for it. It doesn't look outside of this little box. So you need to provide the box, cannot look outside of it, right? So where things go fast, and in this case, it can go really fast once it finds trial and error and it gets better and better at predicting who your audience is, it also is able to break very fast. And that's why this role is essential to see if you see any anomalies in your data, in your performance, that you can act real quick and turn it over in the way as to get it back on track. Now, sometimes that means not touching anything at all. Sometimes it means you have to act and do something about it. Later more on that. So lastly, you want to look for opportunities here and push towards your goals. But with the new machine learning and AI upcoming, you also have the rise of a new enemy. And an enemy that quite much lurks often in the shadows, and it can do a whole lot of damage if you don't know how to act on it. And simple name of this enemy is instability. Brands and stores are more and more relying on other platforms to function. For example, payments, processors, e-commerce platforms, cloud-based solutions. They're great, but simultaneously, they're the greatest enemy that is lurking in the dark. If the machine, for example, understands who your audience is, but they aren't converting because, for example, the Amazon servers are down temporarily, the machine receives a signal that it isn't working, but it doesn't understand why. And this again is where you come in, because you have to set the system in a way like, okay, if your servers were down, you are able to send information to the system and say, okay, we had a temporary dip. Don't take this amount of data into account for future predictions, because it's very important, because a dip can also mean that it tries different ways to find your audience, and actually it goes outside of your audience and you will lose it, and it actually is a downward spiral from there. So it's essential working with machine learning and AI that stability is key. So you want to become as much stable as possible with your payment processors, your cloud solutions, and any content management system that you have connected with it as well. So for human and machine to excel, you need to provide quality training data. You need to determine the playing field, as we discussed. You want to strive for the utmost stability and consistency. And you want to treat the machine as a coworker new on the job. Be patient. Like I said, people don't tend to trust machines as they see it like a hit or miss. It should be better, but they don't tend to trust it as much as humans. Like if you have a new employee on board and it made a mistake, said, hey, I made a mistake, you'll likely more tend to say like, okay, you learned from it, go do better, right? That's what normal is. So you want to treat the system in the same way, because it has to learn from hit or miss. And this is what I see is going off with a lot of people. They tend to not be patient and go for the instant gratification, which is again in their human nature. And finally, you want to dial in the fundamentals that are key for your future growth. Okay, so now we got that set. Now it's time for the actual implementation of this in your Google Ads account. And we're going to start with the first one, and that is pick the right attribution model, which is key because we want to make sure we feed the machine with a combination of volume and quality data. This is a fundamental part that can be the difference between winning or losing, and I'll show you why that is. First of all, you always want to use the Google Ad Pixel over importing transactions from Google Analytics, simply because Google Ads Pixel registers more hits, as in conversions, and Google Analytics measures things differently, is also measuring different channels. So when you start importing that, you just simply miss a whole lot of data that you could use to send to your machine learning systems. Now, you do not want to use last click attribution, which is actually the default setting when you set up a pixel. Reason why is the customer journey is getting more and more complex, and a last click attribution basically only sends the information to the machine as what happens on the day that that conversion happened. Like what were the statistics of this buyer, what was the age, what device was it from, all that kind of things. But as you know, the higher your price point is, the more clicks people have during the journey. Also, people tend to start on Facebook or start on Google, come back and forth. So there's more clicks happening, and just sending this last bit of piece of data, you can imagine that if you feed that to the algorithm, it simply doesn't have enough to identify where most of the people start, as in what was their first click. So what you want to do here is you want to always try to move towards data-driven attribution. That's the ultimate goal, as you can see here on the right. But the thing with data-driven attribution is you need at least 15,000 clicks a month and 600 conversions. So before you get there, you're right much in for some time. But before you can do that, what we like to do is always work with position-based as a second best. Reason why is because it really emphasizes on the first and the last click, which is, in my opinion, very important parts of the customer journey. Because without that first click, that last click likely wouldn't happen. Clicks in between are okay, but the first and the last click are, for me, often most important. And lastly, you want to set the right click-through conversion window, which is by default set to 30 days. But the more data the system can connect within a certain time frame, the more optimal the feedback is. So you want to do here is look at your average sale delay or your time lag or how you want to call it. You can fetch this also in analytics, see like, okay, what is my average day? If you see that it exceeds your 30 days, you already want to set your click-through conversion window at least 60 days. 60 days I would set by default. The higher the price point is, obviously this conversion window widens open. But this is something you can check. So always base this on the data that you have. If you start off with something from scratch, you could simply start with 30, watch your data, what's coming in at the attribution level, and then move forward from there and either change it to a higher click-through conversion window. Secondly, you always want to start with your brand. This is often under-leveraged and also often misunderstood, and it's essential to creating order and prevent flawed data. So what do I mean here? Well, you want to isolate your branded traffic in a separate campaign for two reasons. First of all, you want to measure your brand growth, and you do this by measuring the impressions over time. It's the only tool that can do that. You can only do this with your organic because simply you're lacking data that you can see in your analytics. So you want to pay for this kind of traffic, and you want to make sure that you see an increasing line over time because that's what you want. You want to see year on year, how much did my brand grow? Because in the end, you pay once for an acquisition of a customer, but you hope in the future they will either come directly back to you or they come by knowing your brand by heart, filling that into Google, and then come to you back as well. Second, you want to claim pole position above any competitor with your custom message. A lot of people always claim like, yeah, why should I use paid ads for my brand if I'm already there on the first organic listing? Well, your organic listing is static. You cannot customize your message. And secondly, if there's a competitor, it will always show above it. So you want to make sure that you claim that top spot. Then furthermore, what you want to do next is you want to exclude all your brand keywords on all your other non-brand search campaigns. So anything that's not related to your, for example, if you're Nike, you want to exclude your Nike brand keywords from campaigns that are, for example, about sneakers. Because what we see is that a lot of agencies, what they do, either consciously or unconsciously, is that they leave branded traffic to be fetched by the non-branded campaigns because they forgot to exclude it to show off performance, because it is an indication like, look how good our non-branded traffic is doing, but actually it isn't doing that well if you can cut out all the branded traffic, right? So, and secondly, if you're feeding the machine the wrong data in your non-branded campaigns and you have their budget and a bid strategy for, then you're sending flawed data into a machine and it gets confused. So isolation is important here, and you want to isolate your branded traffic in this one specific campaign to prevent flawed data, and you want to have order and structure. And in the end, you want to feed the account. If you start from scratch, you want to feed the account easy conversion data points to fuel the machine. So you can already get to know, like in the history of the account, it can understand like what are the easy points, like brand sales are the easiest one to get, because as soon as you start on Facebook, you want to activate this in your Google Ads because it's like a flywheel. As soon as you put Facebook on, this will run as well. And if you're not there, you're simply missing out on a whole lot of stuff. Thirdly, you want to build funnel step campaigns. Now, it kind of like is in the name already. What's happening here is like you can segment your traffic in Google also between different funnel steps. Like obviously there are more generic and long tail keywords. So as you can see here on the left side, I have made an example of awareness keywords like just sneakers. People are searching for anything with sneakers. We don't know much about what people are searching here. There's more like a research awareness keyword. Search volumes are often very, very high for these keywords, and the conversion rate is low because we don't know exactly what they want. They likely don't know exactly what they want. So the landing page and the ad are also more of a generic nature, and that's why actually this is the top, that has the most volume, but is the least converting kind of traffic. If we take that one level down, we see the consideration phase. We see a Nike sneaker, which have significantly lower volume of traffic, but a higher conversion rate, because we know quite much, okay, they're searching for Nike sneakers. Give us an indication what ad should we write, what landing page should be fit to this as well. And so you go down and down on this level, and you see that the more long tail the traffic becomes, these search queries, the more we know about what people are searching for. We can dial it into our search and shopping campaigns in this matter, and we have simply a higher conversion rate. So these are the representation of different steps in the funnel. Now, here's what most people do. They have one campaign and they have one budget on this one campaign, and they add all these different funnel step keywords in here. So for example, they have sneakers, but they also have Nike sneakers, and they have the long tail type of keywords here as well. But we know that all these separate keywords are converting differently. So then the question is, okay, what bid strategy should we use here? Because they're all, like, if sneakers has a massive amount of traffic, we're running into two types of problems here. First of all, the budget allocation is on campaign level. And now we cannot control how much percentage of that budget is going to what step of the funnel. Because likely as sneakers has that much traffic, it is able to almost eat like the complete pie of that budget. So the better converting keywords, which are lower in the funnel but have lesser search volume, are not able to shine as bright because they won't have the potential to do that, because the generic traffic is eating all the budget, right? So that's the problem they're running into. And secondly, the bid strategy is also set on campaign level, and we know that these keywords are performing differently, so we want to segment them out to have more control. So what should you do then for your search and for your shopping? Well, you want to split them in separate campaigns regarding the steps of the funnel. So I would say at top of funnel, middle of funnel, and bottom of funnel. And for you guys that already masters at Facebook ads, this is like your daily bread and butter, so you understand the concept of this, and it's easier for you to work this through. So in every campaign, we have the separation of the steps of the funnel keywords, and this gives us the ability to have more control on budget level. So the top level at the top of funnel, which contains the generic traffic, has a dedicated budget, and because we know that conversion rates are low, we can tweak that budget and we can set a specific target return on ad spend for that. That could be really high or low, depending if you're prospecting or really want to drive margins and profits. Second campaign is your middle of funnel, again, dedicated budget, but this time we know that it converts better than that first campaign, so we can also tweak with our budget here in combination with bid strategies that we want to set. And the third campaign is our bottom of funnel, and contains like the long tail keywords that we know that are already converting, and they're converting at a high level. So we don't want to put a target return on ad spend bid strategy, for example. We simply want to do manual bidding, but bid very aggressively, because we want to win all the auctions. And working with, for example, target return on ad spend strategies, what happens is that it fetches in the whole pool of auctions to see, okay, which auctions are you more likely to win? But with the last part, we know there is not that much search volume. You want to have full control, and you want to bid very aggressively to win those auctions and be able to get the most out of the deal. Then, fourth, we have the parallel placement messaging, which is our strategy that we use to structure our ads along the customer journey. And this is essentially important because we're playing here with intent. And the beauty of intent is that we can preempt our ads. This gives us control. So by using keywords or product titles for Google Shopping, we are able to identify, okay, what type of traffic can we expect on these keywords. This gives us the opportunity to write very high qualified ads for that traffic. So this is one goal of the parallel placement messaging, is aligning the messaging with the customer journey. So what we need to do here is we want to structure our ad groups by intent. So we want to take our keywords and see, okay, are they representing the same intent? If it's yes, we put them together. If no, you want to split them up in separate ad groups. So for example, if we take that back to the example where we have with awareness sneakers, and then, for example, Nike Flyknit trainer, they don't represent the same intent, because sneaker is much more generic than the Nike Flyknit trainer. So you want to split them up. Furthermore, we want to have 3 text ads and 1 responsive ad per ad group. Why is this? Why do we recommend this? Simply because we need to think further than one ad rules all, which is the old way of doing Google Ads, where you want to find one ad that goes the best, and then leave that one running. But what a lot of people don't know is that the algorithms in the background are now able to identify which ad resonates better with subsets of your audience. Which means that one ad can resonate better with suburban dads between the age of 35, 44, often on mobile devices, on a Sunday afternoon scrolling through the products. And the other ad might resonate better with young urbans between the age of 25 and 30 that are on a laptop and have other types of signals that the system takes into account. So you want to think what the instructor phase also was, the instructor role was know your audience. So you need to be able to also identify demographic and psychographics and really nail down like, okay, who are my audience, my typical audience, and create ads for that. Let then the algorithm do the rest and identify which keyword with audience and what ad, so you get a little triangular here, works the best. So you only have to think about the higher level, the 80-20, be more creative. Google becomes more creative in that sense, and the machine will do the rest for you. And then, yeah, how we structure these ads, for example, is like this. So we have headline 1. What we do here is we repeat the intent back to them. This gives us an indication that they have the idea like that we are reading their mind, like I was searching for this. And it also emphasizes on if they see the intent back to them in the headline, they're more likely to click. And it's about like 50% of people are clicking on an ad based on the headline only. So we want to be able to emphasize directly with them in the first headline. Now the second headline we're using to emphasize on desire number 1. And headline 3, we always use a core benefit. And then in description line 1 and 2, we align our offer with their ultimate desires and we close that often off with a call to action. Now, if we have different subset of that audiences, we change this. But basically, this is like the framework that we're using to use for our parallel placement messaging. And then the final step is what I call the bid strategy playbook, because I see that people are struggling with bid strategies and they want to have control, but they don't want to have control. And they take actions which actually do more damage than good in their account and for their results. So what you want to keep in your mind is that you always want to have, when you start, have an initial learning period of 3 weeks. No touching or feeling. So just leave it for 3 weeks. Like Google tells you that it has a learning phase of 7 days, but trust me, you want to keep it running for 3 weeks. If you start a new account, start off campaigns with your manual bidding and enhanced CPC. I see a lot of them immediately going for a return on ad spend targets or target CPA. If the account doesn't have any historical data or data to work with, you want to first provide that data. You don't want it to run backwards and forth because the trial and error takes simply way longer and it has a way wider shotgun approach than you would have when your account already has some quality conversion data in, and then it is able to target things more accurately. If you want to use target return on ad spend bid strategy on your campaigns, you want to have at least 25 conversions per campaign per 30 days. So this is another thing to take into account, which can help you structure your campaigns effectively if you want to reach this goal. But most people are able to do that. By the way, this advice is not static. If you come back to me in a year, I would likely tell you something differently. Reason why is because computing power doubles every 18 months. Meaning machine learning and AI in general are becoming faster, more sophisticated, so they can things are going simply more efficient. So the conclusions that they draw are also going to be more effective as well. So this is right now in time what I think the best solution, but you can also think for yourself and see, okay, the more valuable data that you're able to provide the algorithm, the better results you get, right? That's from always the baseline, you know this, and that's what you need to do, but provide enough conversions. But again, in time, this will decrease as things will get better, faster, and stronger. One other thing is stability. You do not want to keep tweaking your landing pages or have a sudden drop in loading speed. Stability is very important. And often not touching campaigns can be optimization on itself. Not with everything, but we can use it as a course correction. Like I said, what I see a lot of people do working with bid strategies, there are certain changes that you make which will reset the learning phase. For example, change your ads, change your ROAS. Try to adjust anything on your bid adjustments. For example, resets often the learning phase. So by not touching that, you are course correcting this, and it will itself find the right spots again. But again, do not panic. Do not go in your human nature, start panicking and start tweaking things, because too much tweaking actually results in a whole lot of damage. And lastly, you want to bulk change you want to make bulk changes together to reduce what I call the recoil effect. It's what I just mentioned. If you make too much changes, you shut a shock the algorithm, it doesn't know what to do, it gets confused, and then you're back into your learning phase. So whenever you want to do changes, plan them in advance, so you do it all in one day, or in 1 hour for that matter, so you can put them all together, then you have one learning phase, and then you can move on again. So do not change multiple times per week. You're just simply not helpful for your results. And then we're going to go to, the algorithms are sensitive and stability is key for optimal learning. While I just said, do not shock the algorithm. This is also what I see a lot, do not pause and reactivate your campaigns all the time. Again, Google likes consistency. Algorithms work with consistency, so you want to remain consistent with your campaigns as well. If you have to do something, then you can still lower your budget yourself, but shutting it off is often the worst you can do because it resets everything, and then you have to start from scratch once more. Now, in case of any temporarily change, you want to forward the data to the system. And this is a little hack that I want to give you. For example, if you noticed that yesterday there was a payment processor that didn't work, your website was down for whatever reason, or anything else which data is going to be fed to the algorithm and doesn't know what to do, you have the ability to send a signal to Google to not take into account this change, or to say, hey, yesterday we had, or tomorrow we expect, in case of a sale, a certain increase or decrease of your conversions or sales for that matter. So you're able to instruct the system by saying something works better or worse, because the system again works in this little box and you need to send these signals. So how you do that, you just go to Tools, Bid Strategies, Advanced Controls, and it's called Seasonality Adjustments, which is not the best name for this because you can do a whole lot more than just seasonality adjustment, but it's also to help you out if something happened when you got like Amazon servers were down, for example, right? You can send them the data and say, okay, yesterday wasn't the best day, don't take it into account for the rest of the learning phase. That's it. I hope this was very valuable to you. I want to thank you all for your attention. If there's any questions, let me know. And for now, I wish you all the best day. Cheers.